Hi, and welcome to Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving, a podcast series by Tharaka Foundation focused on youth mental health. Before we begin today's episode, I just wanted to let you all know that all content that is found in our podcast is created for informational purposes only. This content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, or therapy. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition, and never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard in this podcast. Thank you so much, and without further ado, let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving. Today we are discussing Christmas traditions with our very own Nancy Mautino. Mrs. M is my scoutmaster, and she's very kind, generous, creative, and supportive. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Season's greetings, everyone. I grew up in San Diego and attended Sunnyside Elementary along with my older brother, Dickie. You'd be right in thinking that he made us all stop calling him by that nickname once he entered middle school. His given name is Kent Richard, and he lives in Alaska now. For middle and high school, I attended the School for Creative and Performing Arts, where I met my husband in the production of Guys and Dolls. Later, I majored in comparative literature while working in several libraries simultaneously. After becoming a mom to two boys, I began volunteering.
Thank you so much for introducing yourself. Firstly, how do you and your family celebrate Christmas?
Christmas has a duality of tradition, and we celebrate both. Aspect one, there are the decorations that momentarily take your breath away. Joyous gift giving, gatherings with those you love to share meals with, lots of candy, piles of presents and pretty wrappings. The incredulity of Santa coming to your house because he thinks you are a good child. We always drive to San Diego for Christmas to visit our grandparents, Mr. M and my parents. On the drive down, Santa always calls my kids on the phone, and the phone lights up with his picture. In our house, there are Christmas songs being played on the radio and smells of pies and cookies baking. Aspect two, the above has wonderful experiences, but all of them stem from the religious core. My grandfather and my husband's grandfather were Lutheran pastors. Martin Luther, the man who inspired Martin Luther King's name, was a significant person in history. He translated the Bible into the common language so people could read it for themselves and not just take the word of priests for what they said was in it. Lutheran is a subcategory of Christianity. Having grandfathers whose life work was spreading joy and comfort to people around the world, my grandfather traveled to war-torn countries, made Christianity an important element in our lives.
Ooh, that seems cool. Do you have a favorite part of Christmas and a least favorite part?
My favorite part, aspect one, is when we return home from San Diego, the kids rush in the house before us parents to discover that magic has taken place. Under the Christmas tree are tons of presents, which weren't there when we left. Everywhere that Santa walked has a special sparkly magic dust. It leads from the chimney to wherever Santa walked and all the things he touched. It might even be in the refrigerator where he found carrots on a saran wrap plate for the reindeer. There's always one special present from Santa to each child, and it's usually their heart's desire. At the fireplace are the stockings bursting with candies and toys from around the world. The cookies we have left out for Santa's snack have been eaten with crumbs remaining, and the milk and carrots for the reindeer have been consumed. Santa also leaves us a reply letter to the one that my children left, and his letter is on special paper. One time, He left a bell from the harness of his sleigh for my son Cameron, as that was his heart's desire. My favorite aspect, too, is singing in the church choir. Growing up, our church had a long aisle down the middle, great for processing with a choir or in a wedding gown. Each pew bench had a candle bow on a golden metal holder, red, white, and green plant decorations on it. The altar area was decked with red poinsettias and a large Christmas tree with white lights and chrysanthemums, sparkly white and gold silver ornaments with religious meanings. Under the tree was the creche, or manger, with shepherds, sheep, and barn animals, Mary, Joseph, baby Jesus, angels, and a star. The choir would sing, and it would fill the church with amazing sound. Sound that you could feel with favorite songs, ancient and familiar. There's a spirit that occurs when you are filling your lungs with song as part of a much larger moment of music with others. That's so special. There's nothing like it. It's as alive and beautiful as flowers in spring. My least favorite part of Christmas is the rush of the many things needed to happen before getting ready to leave for San Diego.
Oh, do you have any childhood memories to share?
Oh, yes. Cookies, milk, writing a letter. Sometimes I left my shoes out on December 6th, St. Nick Day, and there would be presents inside in the morning. St. Nick Day is celebrated in Germany, where my mom went to elementary school. Sometimes I would see Santa during the year, sitting in church or at the beach. I'd go up to him and say hi. My family always ate Japanese food on Christmas Day, since one of the other places my mom grew up was Japan for middle school. We'd get to open our stockings before church. After church, when lunch was finished, we'd get to open presents. There would be presents sent in the mail from our grandparents. Sometimes we'd go to my grandparents' house and have a Christmas lunch of Japanese food there.
That sounds fun. Can you please educate us about the history of Christmas?
Well, aspect one, Santa Claus, also known as Sinterklaas, St. Nicholas, Father Christmas, Kris Kringle, Père Noël, Yule Gnome, biblical magi, etc., goes back to the 3rd century when St. Nicholas walked the earth and became the patron saint and protector of children. He was born around 280 in what is now modern-day Turkey, but then called Patara. There are many legends concerning his kindness, how he gave away all his wealth and traveled around healing the sick and doing good things. He died on December 6th, the day he celebrated in some countries. As you can see by the vast number of names, 128 that I saw, Santa visits many countries in the world. Most people today in the United States don't know St. Nicholas as the person, but only the name. Most Americans are familiar with the name Santa Claus because of the Dutch settlers in the U.S. They used the name Sinterklaas, a derivation of St. Nicholas. In the 1800s, American newspapers published his woodcut images with stockings and toys. There were stories and holiday advertisements in the newspapers as well. Nowadays, the history of Christmas grows through movies. Some famous Christmas movies worth watching are Miracle on 34th Street, It's a Wonderful Life, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, A Charlie Brown Christmas, Home Alone, The Christmas Story, The Santa Claus, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, The Polar Express, Frosty the Snowman, and Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Aspect 2. The true meaning of Christmas goes way back into antiquity. In our religion, the first man and woman, Adam and Eve, did something that God had asked them not to do. They ate the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And this sin made them unperfect. Sin means missing the mark, as in a bullseye. Because they weren't perfect anymore, they and their offspring lost their immortality and their home in paradise. God sent instructions on how to live a good life in the world. Whenever any of these instructions were broken by people, they missed the mark. And people made sacrifices, symbolically putting their sin on the innocent animal, usually a lamb, and killing it. God gave the gift of his son coming to the world to be the ultimate sacrifice, the Lamb of God, to take away all present and future sin so that we would have everlasting life again in paradise and could stop murdering innocent animals. We did nothing to deserve God's gift. Christmas is the celebration of the day God's Son came to earth as a baby in the lowest of circumstances, being born in a barn with all the animals and manure. God's Son Jesus was the first gift that was given on Christmas. The word Christmas is a combination of Christ, anointed, and mas, sent. Interesting fact. Christ is represented by the letter X. That's why people write Xmas, and why X's are used to represent kisses, and why X marks the spot, etc., etc.
Adding on to that, what's the purpose of the celebration?
There's a whole church calendar that we celebrate each year, even a normal period. Christmas is a part of the church calendar. The highlight of the church calendar is Easter, when Jesus was sacrificed and 3 days later, after traveling to hell and conquering death, came back to earth resurrected. He came out of his tomb, spent some time in the community, and went to heaven to rule at the right hand of his Father. His resurrection completed the Adam and Eve story, returning us to perfect in God's eyes. Christmas is the most famous part of the church calendar because of marketing, but Easter is the most important part.
That makes sense. Okay, let's move on now. Do you ever feel stressed during Christmas? For example, holiday stress?
Oh, yes. Any large celebration has lots of components that you want to go well.
Interesting. What do you feel classifies as good stress?
One kind of positive stress is when there's a positive response to a stressor. For example, will my young child be courteous to an older relative? If yes, that was a stressor that got a positive response. Another type of positive stress is the elevated heart rate you get from excitement, such as anticipation and experiencing the wonder firsthand. This is all from aspect 1. Aspect 2 is beautiful, personal, and peaceful, not stressful.
I agree. What falls in the category of bad stress?
Bad stress involves ambiguity, hopelessness, uncertainty, fear, and feelings of being overwhelmed. Light versions of bad stress for me include being stuck in traffic for long periods, temper fraying because of time schedules, shopping lines and crowds, leaving the house for a long trip. You know, we also have both dogs and a cat in the car with us when we drive the 11 plus hours to San Diego. Then there are the much darker versions of bad stress that involve the health, suffering, and or death of those you love. These situations have much uncertainty, fear, and hopelessness, as you have no control over the outcome.
Lastly, what advice do you have about stress in general as a whole? And what are some ways you handle your holiday stress?
Stress is energy you can use in positive ways. It can push you towards wisdom or as a catalyst for growth in an unfamiliar area. Going through stress makes you better at going through stress. It makes you stronger. Stress strengthens your connections to the ones who are experiencing it with you and makes you more compassionate. Identifying stress is an opportunity for kindness. It's an opportunity to say not only I can handle this, but send me. I can make the world better. Some ways I handle holiday stress, I say no to things that I would not be able to do given time, energy, and energy constraints. I spend time spreading joy to others. There's nothing more grounding than keeping the most important thing in mind, which is kindness. I spend time with my family, watching movies, doing puzzles, looking at holiday lights. I'll never regret the moments we had together. For myself, I like stories, chocolate treats, pretty colors, and warmth. All the senses get a gift.
That seems cool. Thank you so much for taking your time and being our special guest, Mrs. M.
I really enjoyed spending time with you. Thank you for having me as a guest.
We hope you learned something new and enjoyed the podcast. And that wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for listening.
You are listening to Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving, a podcast series by Tharaka Foundation. As part of our youth series, we will be releasing new episodes every Friday, so make sure to continue to check those out. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and thank you so much for listening.